Mm.
All right. This is a tiki monkey or something. I don't know. It's some mixed thing, but it's got banana in it. It's like all kinds of good stuff in it.
Oh wow, that does
Yeah.
sound tasty. I forgot what this is. The name of this brand is, but this is a coffee moonshine. So I will be behaving myself as much as possible.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, because I've had the blackened whiskey on the other show, and that didn't go too well. So
Oh, you tried the blackened?
yeah, I got it. Like my brother-in-law and sister-in-law were able to. They had an extra bottle they didn't need, so it was like I got to have it. So don't worry, I'll still be drinking it later on in a couple weeks.
Nope. If you've already had it, you don't get any. I haven't opened it yet. I haven't opened the bottle yet, so it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, so this week was my pick of movies, or this month, this year, whatever, however we're randomly doing this. So I picked. I guess we would call these alternate reality movies, which would be, and the reason I did it was because, usually once a month, my wife goes to Atlanta and I watch whatever I want. And she does not like science fiction. She does not like horror. She does not like documentaries. And I watched a documentary on the Mandela Effect. And I thought it was really interesting. In fact, it's called like a glitch in the Matrix is what it's called. And it basically talks about all of the different weird things that supposedly prove that we are just in a simulation, and that basically that we move through these alternate realities based on our decisions, and things change, blah blah blah. So I was like, oh, I wonder if they have any movies like this. So I looked it up, and I had watched one of these movies years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, all right, I know there's one, and then I looked it up, and I was like, all right, so I picked 4 movies. So let's jump right in here, JC. Right?
All right, let's jump right into a rabbit hole. Let's do
it. So the first one is 41, which was an interesting one. It was the first one that I watched when I picked movies, and this is so I guess the idea is Aiden is the main guy, and Lauren is his girlfriend, and there's a lot of weird stuff. So I guess the basic premise of this movie is uh, he's leaving class, and then a guy approaches and ends up it's him,
Mm-hmm.
an alternate version of him, and he says, "Don't go to this motel." So of course, what do? You immediately go to the motel,
Right.
and he finds basically he finds a hole in the floor of the bathroom. He pulls up the floor and he goes in, and then he goes back like 12 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't. So the whole premise is you can only go back. When you go into the hole, you go back 12 hours. So he goes into the hole 12 hours before this horrific accident happened. And so that's kind of our premise right there. So your initial thoughts on the movie?
I really like the intro. That was kind of cool how they set you up a little bit. It had that little like cheesy national like what is it national history like channel type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It had that feel to it, but also gave it a little bit of that documentary. Gave it like that narrative of like what the heck we're gonna expect here. So that was kind of cool. And then like when you get to see Aiden and then he's talking with his grandmother and stuff like that. That also throws. I like the line she says, "Isn't everything just in your head?" I thought that was like again, it's already starting to set you up.
Right.
And so I really enjoy his character because it then jumps into the philosophy class and jumps into more theories and stuff like that. So they're already starting to poke at you a little bit of what kind of like crazy Looney Tune stuff you're going to experience. So I got a whole like Back to the Future butterfly effect from this movie a little bit.
Yeah.
Because instead of a time machine or with butterfly effect, he was able to use his mind. With this, he just, hey, I'm gonna go in a hole in the floor.
Right. Yeah.
And it's kind of neat because like you see these characters he meets along the way. First, the gentleman in the hospital who kind of like pokes a little bit a little bit at him after the accident. I don't want to say too much. And then what the combination of seeing himself and then the accident and this guy in the hospital kind of like really set the motion. And then like you start to see how the heck how this affects everything in his life.
Right.
And I thought it was pretty neat. I really like the aspect the whole aspect, this whole storytelling had. And it was a little creepy at moments, it was a little cheesy at moments, but yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of where when I watched, I was like, all right, this doesn't make sense. And then by the end, some of it made sense. Not everything made sense.
Mm-hmm.
Some of his choices made no sense. I mean, they moved the narrative along,
Mm-hmm.
but I was like, yeah, this, is this really needed? The whole thing was it was filmed. It's a cheap looking movie, but
Mm-hmm.
I think that adds to it. You know what I mean? It's not a big blockbuster with giant special effects and stuff like that. It's kind of a little spoiler. At one point, I won't say why, but at one point he goes into the hole a lot of times to go back in time.
That was like that was nerve wracking. Like, oh my gosh.
But it was like several minutes of he gets in a hole, he comes out, he gets in, he comes out. And I was like, all right, enough or we get it. He's moving through time a lot. Overall, I thought the idea was good. Again, there's a lot of holes in the plot.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things that don't make any sense, but I understand to get from point A to point B, and it's also one of those, because we're doing alternate realities, you meet him, like a dozen times. There's a lot of things that happen in the beginning, and then you're like, okay, then which I always like. Then they switch it around. It's like from another version of him point of view. The big part in the beginning, what happens. I mean, you see various versions of him trying to correct things, and a lot of times it's only making it worse.
Yeah, and that was neat, because I was having a little bit of the same issue. Like, okay, this is not really making too sense, but at the same time, alternate timeline stuff is always confusing, and
right.
always, and they can either play that very well to really kind of trick you, confuse you, play around with it a little bit. I think they were doing that maybe a little too much. I think it did wrap up nicely at the end, where I think you could make up your own theories, especially when he figured out how far he had to go back. I was like, oh, okay, because that's what I was thinking. I'm like, is this? Obviously it's not the same. He's growing, like, he'll go back 3 or 4 days, but then he's living those days all over again, and then he's seeing things how they change because of what he did. Right. So that was kind of neat. The ending itself, I think, was the best part of the whole movie.
Yeah.
It was very well written and beautifully done. It was very, like, it really tugged on your heartstrings a little bit.
Yeah, I agree.
Because part of me was like, with how far, and of course how far back, and there's a certain scene, I was like, oh yeah, that's Back to the Future right there. Like, that's definitely, like, I was like, look at that sign, that was great. Even Spielberg, I had a feeling Spielberg to this movie too. But yeah, when it got to that ending, it really, I would rewatch it just to see that all over again and try and maybe see if it'll make sense to me,
Yeah.
The only part I didn't like was the whole cop scene. That's the only part. It was really goofy.
Yeah, it didn't really make I don't think it added anything to it. I think the other guy that you meet, like you said, you meet a guy in the hospital. You meet him a couple of times in the movie.
Yeah, he was a core piece.
Yeah, and he's a little over the top at times, where it came off as cartoonish.
Yeah.
I didn't like that. I really like the ending. I like the way they wrap it. They wrap up a lot of the threads, and it also, the very last scene kind of leaves you guessing of, okay, what is really going to happen? Is he able to totally change everything? Because the last version you see of him is clueless. In my mind, he's clueless that he's traveled through time and everything.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty neat. And I mean, overall, I think it was good. It's one of those movies I was like, as soon as I saw it, I was like, I'm not going to watch it again, to try to figure it out. I'm going to watch these all once. And if I can't figure it out, then I can't figure it out. Then that means I'm an idiot.
Right.
But so that was kind of that was the first one. I once I watched that, I'm like, oh, I got to watch more of these movies.
Yeah. Oh, you know what's cool? Of course, going to my research mode. Heathscape Motel. I looked up the word Heathscape. It doesn't give a clear description and what connects to other books and stuff, but of course it'll say like, oh, how did 41 end? So it did connect to that movie,
Right.
was connecting to other things, but it essentially means a case of madness, or what did I put there? Oh, repetition. That's my crappy handwriting. Repetition and madness. So I'm like, oh, okay, that makes kind of sense.
That makes sense, yeah.
And I thought it was interesting. Again, I don't want to say too much. Like that part, you see some scenes. You see the old man who owns the motel. He's watching over.
Right.
That was neat because I was wondering where they're going with that. And but yeah, I would like to watch it again when I'm in the mood for it.
Now, did that part surprise you? Because it did not surprise me, because when we were first introduced to him and other stuff, I'm like, I just had the feeling that I knew where this was going to play out, and I was kind of disappointed because it played out that way.
It surprised me, but probably because maybe I didn't connect the two. But as like, the years go by, you wonder who or what he would be.
Yeah.
And then once they did it, like, oh, that makes sense. How come I didn't connect it? Because then you start. Then I start, because I was rewatching a little bit.
Right.
I had a weird couple weeks. I've been watching them sporadically, so I like kind of rewatch a little bit and go back to certain scenes and take notes. And so like, but when it got to those scenes where you see, we get to the front of the motel again, and I'm like, okay, that makes sense. I see where they'll go at, and that's pretty sneaky to some degree, because you wondered why is this, what is going on with the shot, because you see it more than once, and it did surprise me, and maybe that's why I really liked it a lot,
Yeah. All right, you got any other notes on this one, or should we move on?
No, let's move on. Oh yeah, and there's definitely cosmic horror in it. I just want to throw it out there, so that's why. That's all. That's all. I had to say it.
Obviously, I think Beaches is cosmic horror to you.
Probably. So the next something cosmic horror in Beaches. Water.
You can find some. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're on the water. So the next one we watched was Parallel.
Yes.
And so this one is a bunch of people, 4 people who live in a house together. They rent. And they find a secret entrance that leads to the attic, and they find a mirror that basically leads to other dimensions. And they obviously crazy things ensue from there. I mean, that's the basic plot.
Yeah. It was. I didn't know where they're going to take it. This is really. This is another one where some of the goofy aspects took me out of it. They're like, it was like, okay, this kind of makes sense, but it doesn't. But it was neat because the beginning, what happens was kind of eerie stuff. Very Twilight Zone, this movie. Very Twilight Zone. Again, there's a little bit hint of that cosmic horror, especially the ending. But you get the sense of these friends. There's definitely some kind of tension between them, and especially with the type of work they're doing. Like they're trying to create this app. And get the zap out there, and then they failed, and then they just felt like, they all feel like failures. And there's another one kind of plays off, like 41 was definitely playing off of like fixing your mistakes. This was not really fixing their mistakes. They were doing some really greedy ass stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly. It was like
an alternate heist movie kind of, but wasn't heist. You know what I'm saying? Like it that's how it played out a little bit.
It was definitely like the top dog guy. I think his name was Noel.
Yeah.
He was kind of a jerk.
Yeah.
But I mean, he does it well. So I don't know if you watched Mr. Robot, the series, Mr. Robot.
No, is that where he's from? Is why I've seen him before? That's
where I know him from. I know him from. He basically played that sleazy type of guy in that as well.
Typeset.
Yeah, but he's really good at it,
Yeah.
But he was like, they were really greedy. So there's parts that, like you said, take you out. And the biggest one for me is one of the guys basically says, oh, I don't know, whatever, we're going to get, if I ever was ever rich, I would put a pile of money, like $1 million, and burn it.
Yeah, where do they get the dynamite?
Yes, right. And then they stick dynamite and they blow up in an alternate reality. They blow up $1 million. And I was like, this This doesn't have anything to do with the plot, the movie, anything. And it just, I don't know, it just came off as like a kind of a filler, and we need to make this 4 more minutes or 5 more minutes. I don't know. It made no sense. I thought the interesting part of this was that they're going into alternate realities whenever they step through the mirror, but the time is different. So the time is really different, and so a few minutes there is what is a few minutes there was hours here, or hours.
It was hours there was like a few minutes in in our reality, their actual reality. That's how they were able to do certain things they want to do, because like, oh, we got a deadline. Well, let's go spend time.
Let's go spend 3 days over
which
there.
I think that was kind of neat. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that was neat, but I also liked it was in the movie where everything is kind of the same, except that it was like creative stuff was different. So like they're picking up, they see like DVDs or something, and it's totally different people, actors in it. Books are different, paintings were different, music was different, like everything creative was different.
Spelling of something's different too. They did a little bit of a Mandela effect.
I was just saying. Well. Yeah, so there's definitely the Mandela effect stuff in this one as well, which is interesting which we'll get into the Mandela effect when we. But a lot of the Mandela effect stuff is creative stuff. It's books and movies and TV and different things. So I thought that was kind of neat. So that there's a lot of holes in this one. I mean, watching it the first time and kind of taking notes in my head, and I'm like, so the basic idea is like they go through the mirror, and then now they're in another attic. So anyway, this attic is huge, and I don't know how you didn't know there was an attic up there, that they busted through this thing. So that made no sense.
Right.
And then they talk about the woman who used to live there and went crazy or whatever. So apparently she knew about the mirror. If you watch the beginning of the movie, you'll understand that. But then every time they leave the house into the alternate reality, they see themselves, another version of them. But immediately I went, well, wouldn't in some realities, isn't the old woman still alive? Or wouldn't somebody else have rented the place? Like, I don't know, just like little things like that kind of took me out of it. And I mean, the characters were good. I like the motivations of everybody in this one. I thought it was neat, some of the interactions and the different things. And there's also some cool parts towards the end where you realize, okay, this is not the girl. This is not the A version of her. This is the B or C version of her. So you're kind of, people coming in and out of the mirrors, you're kind of mixing and matching, because obviously if these people found it, then an alternate version of them would have also found the mirror, in my mind. Yeah. It's never really explained that way, but I kind of look at it that way. Of there's no way just one version of you found this mirror. It would be an infinite amount. That's really mostly what I got for it.
I was thinking the same thing. I was like, okay, where again, like, so every time they go back in the mirror resets time. So that's why they're able to keep doing the same things over and over. But then again, aren't you creating a different time? It may reset time for you, but what is it doing to their time?
Right.
How's it affecting their time? I was like, okay, is this ever going to be explained? And it wasn't. It was explained the way you just put it together, which pretty much like, yeah, other people have to know, or at least at some point they created some form of timeline where somebody else is going to find it. And I think the only reason we don't see the old lady is because I think it's just focused on their alternate reality, and like, if they're going to jump in the mirror, they're going to see themselves because it's the other mirror of their life in that house. I think that's the only reason why we don't see like if the lady was in that house still, she wouldn't see them. She would see alternate versions of her still. So I think that's where that went with that idea. But I don't want to lose my thought here. Okay, so we get to all the crazy, like really gory stuff. I was really shocked at some of the
there's a lot of violence, which is
like, we could say what like
I liked it. I don't normally like, I'm not a horror movie fan,
Yeah.
kind of thing. But there was a lot of violence, but I think it fit with the characters because some of the characters are really over the top, and you kind of expect that ruthlessness. So I thought that actually worked well.
Yeah, definitely. And then that's that. I had no problem with something in the end. Even the weird techie stuff, like it really got like crazy futuristic sci-fi.
Yeah.
And in the way, oh my god, just popped my head. And I am wearing a Phantasm 2 shirt, which is all about alternate dimensions. The way they did this actually just popped my head. The way like people change, like I don't want like the way I can like compare it to Phantasm without saying too much. Like when they kill the tall man in Phantasm, he'll come back. And so it's like almost same thing what this did kind of.
Right. Yeah.
That's all I can say. That's all I can say with
Right,
that.
yeah.
And I was like, holy! I didn't even think of that till now actually, because I'm thinking about that crazy gory scene with the mirror just.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. It was. Yeah. I liked it. The end and the very last scene. It was one of those cheesy '80s horror movie scenes.
Yep. Even the shot of it when they're driving down the road. Yeah. I love that.
Well, but you know, I don't want to ruin it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so many things wrong with the very, very last scene that I was like, oh, why did you do that? Like, why did you give it that 80s horror movie ending? You know what I mean? So, like, for me, Friday the 13th was like the ultimate kickstart to the rest of the series. You know, she's in the boat, and then, you know, all that. So, but it's like we don't have to have that jump scare and that extra leading into something in every movie, and that's exactly what they did. And I did not like that. I thought the movie should have ended 5 minutes before, and I would have been happy.
Yeah, I see that. I mean, and me, I mean, probably why I like it because I like that type of like ending. But I also think like when you hear that sound when you're at the rest stop, I think that explains a little more again like the damage they've done.
Right.
They may have, you know, the classic saying, you may close one door, but what other ones were open? You know, and that definitely happened with that scene, and that's where I loved it. My only problem is like all those other scenes we didn't like, all that filler could have been used to write something better that would lead to that better. I think would like
because you just completely changed the rules.
Yeah.
Of everything in the last couple of minutes, and I didn't like that. So without giving any spoilers.
Yeah. No, that's pretty dead on.
Hey, what else you got about that one? Are we moving on?
That's right to the. Let me look at my notes real quick because I want to make sure I don't miss anything cool.
You always have notes, so I always want to make sure.
Only 2 pages, not 4 or 5.
Wow.
I knocked it down to a synopsis type of review. I was like, haha, I'm learning. Instead of being wordy and stuff, you know. No, we said all this stuff. No, that's it. That's pretty much right on the ball. Let me flip to the next one.
Yeah. Which is Coherence.
Yeah.
Which I saw this movie before. So this was the one.
This is the one you've seen before? Oh,
this
cool.
is the one I saw before. And I really liked this movie. And I was like, you know, but it's funny because I watched it years ago. And I mean, not a million years ago, but a few years ago. And I didn't remember a lot of it, which I thought I did. You know, you're like, oh, I've seen that movie before. And a lot of it sitting there watching, I'm like, oh, I didn't remember this. I didn't remember a lot of this stuff. So the premise is 8 friends meet. There's a comet going by overhead, and 8 friends are meeting for dinner. And, you know, it's alluded that the last time a comet in the 1800s went over, people went crazy and things changed and all this other stuff.
More cosmic horror? What?
Oh, jeez.
I can't help it.
Cthulhu flying through the air.
Oh no, we're not going Lovecraftian. We're going beyond. We're going beyond.
Way cosmic horror.
Yeah.
So, so the eight of them basically meet for dinner, and then the idea is the power goes out, and then they go outside, and of course we keep seeing shots of the comet, and a house 2 blocks down, their light is on. So people go down to investigate it. And then it becomes, there's a black spot between the houses, and it ends up being the same house in an alternate reality. And this one gets confusing really quick, even after 2 viewings of it, because you don't know if it's, you know, Mike A, B, C. I mean, there's an infinite amount of people. And but I thought one of the neat things they do in it is they have like glow sticks.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a red. Let's open the box of red glow sticks. But then some people return and they have a green one. So like it's changing a lot of that stuff, like the subtle things. The people are still basically the same people, the same version and stuff. So this is the cool part. When I watched this the second time, the main guy, Mike, I was like, I've seen him before. Like I've seen him in stuff before. And in the movie, he's an actor. So one of the women says, "Oh, what have you been in?" And he says, "Oh, I was in Roswell." And she's like, "For how long?" And he's like, "Every season." And he's kind of annoyed at that. So I actually stopped the movie and I'm like, is that where I saw him? Because I've never seen Roswell.
Mm-hmm.
So I look him up, and he was actually at the same time Roswell was out. He was actually he was in Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Oh, maybe that's where I seen him because he does.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But then I'm like, it's like this big meta thing of, so is this an alternate reality already we're starting in? Because he's saying he was in Roswell, but he was in Buffy the Vampire. Was that a thing that they did on purpose?
Probably, because I didn't catch that.
Well, I caught it the second time, and I'm like, that's kind of it's interesting.
That's
it doesn't really mean anything for the movie, but maybe it does. Maybe it's we're initially starting in an alternate reality where this guy was not on Buffy, but he was on Roswell, because he was never on Roswell.
It definitely had a meta fourth wall feel. I mean, even though I didn't know that, it definitely had that feel. I was thinking almost like it's so indie and so quiet and such a character development type of film. It really it's got a documentary feel to it. Like the way the camera
angle,
stuff like that. Like my wife was watching a little bit with me. She's like, "Is this one of those first person point of views?" I'm like, no, this is just the way it's shot. It's just
I like the way they were shooting. Like the scene cuts. It starts and people are already talking. Mm-hmm. Like they're literally like in mid sentence. Like they put the camera on them while somebody's right in the middle of a conversation or whatever. And I like the characters, because at first you're like, oh, 8 characters. This is going to be a lot of moving parts. But I think it worked because the characters are so different. And then once you start meeting the alternate reality versions of them, and they're just slightly different, or they don't know the same information that the characters should know.
Yeah.
It gets a little confusing when you're trying to figure out yourself, wait a minute, is that the real Mike or whoever? Is that the real person, or is this an alternate version of this person? Because it's almost like you step into the black void between, and you just spin around and you randomly shoot out in another alternate reality.
Literally a rabbit hole. That was literally a like you get lost, which to some degree one of the characters kind of did. You get to see all those different possibilities, and I was like, this is really cool. I was really digging it. For a movie that didn't have a lot of action, it held you because of how weird and confusing it was, because you're trying to put the pieces together, and then when they start figuring out, when one of the characters start figuring that out, you're like, and you just like creeped out when they first saw each other and you see the 2 different glow sticks, the group. I was like, whoa, what is going? It was like really eerie, even when people are knocking on the doors, glass getting smashed, like all these different things are happening to like confuse and throw you off, and they keep happening in different sections or areas or timelines, and
because it's really not happening cool. It's one of those where it's not all happening at the same time. The only thing I didn't like, so they kind of info dump. One of the guy's brothers is this super intelligent scientist guy, and I didn't like the way they do it, where basically they kind of give you all the information at one point in the movie, or they give you too much, I think, information about what's actually going on. And I'm like, it would have been better if they kind of figured it out on their own, or somebody kind of came up with, here's my theory thing, more than, here it is, and let me just lay it all out for you. I didn't like that part. I thought that was kind of, it was almost like the writer or writers were like, we gotta figure out how to explain this now, so let's just simply do it as quickly as possible.
They could have kept a conversation about his brother in there, but in pieces. Like, I agree with you. And I was thinking something similar. I was like, okay, that's a lot they kind of gave away the premise
Yeah.
very quickly. It didn't completely ruin it because the way they confuse you and everything was happening, thankfully. But yeah, they could have like did it a little more along the way, because he was a smart character. His friend Amir was pretty smart. Lauren, was it Lauren? Not Lauren. Oh no, I forgot her name. Well, the blonde chick, the main lead, her boyfriend was I think her boy, not Mike. Her boyfriend was Keith Ken. I don't know. Whatever.
There's a lot of there's
It's a
eight
lot.
there's
It's
a
a
lot
lot.
of
It's already
names.
throwing me off. But but she had a basic idea of it. She was putting it together too. So
Right.
so you have these. They're all really smart characters. They did some stupid things out of panic. It wasn't like, you dummies, you shouldn't be doing that type of thing, like a usual typical horror movie. It was human reaction to like trying, everybody's personality is acting differently to a situation.
Right.
So I think they did that very, very well.
Because there's tension right. There's
Yeah.
tension right from the beginning without anything happening. Amir brings a girl who used to date, the blonde
Husband.
husband,
Yep.
and so at one point they're like, "Oh, tell a story," and he tells this story that happened when he used to date her,
Mm-hmm.
and then of course the wife gets really pissed off. Of all the stories, of all the interesting stories to tell, you had to tell one from when you dated her. So there's all that tension too. And then I thought it was interesting because characters keep splitting up and doing different things, and none of it seemed ridiculous or uncalled for.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it wasn't like, hey, me and Bob are gonna just go leave and go to the other house, and everybody's like, yeah, fine. It was like a lot of quick arguing or going, no, don't go, or whatever. Because then at that point you're like, well, what house are they actually going to? It's this house, but what version is going to be inside? Are they the same people arguing? Is it they're all just, hey, we're just hanging out because the comet's coming and we don't have all this tension? So there was a lot of different versions of people in that, and I like that part of it as well. I like that it made sense in that respect, that people weren't just doing dumb things, and then they were just trying to figure out, they were trying to figure out who's who and everything. Because I guess the one thing, the idea, and I know it was, I think it was in the description or on the show, whatever, so it's not really a spoiler. Once the comet passes, everything is set. Nothing can be reset. So, they get to that point where they're like, well, this is me. I'm here. So do I like all these people that are here with me? Is this because a couple times there was some really devastating news in the group of, infidelity and different alcoholism, different things that happen that you're like, and at that point as I'm watching it, I'm like, man, I wouldn't want to be around any of these people. Where they were at that moment, like I don't want to hang out with the worst version of JC Walsh. I mean, there's bad enough, I mean, I don't want to hang out with that guy. So that was kind of,
I hung out with him years ago. You don't want to
yeah, you don't want to do that. So I thought that was cool. So what did you think about the ending?
Oh, I again, another like Twilight Zone type of feeling to it. It again, it didn't get ridiculous. It all fit. It led to it when they talk about the darkness of each other and those alternate versions, and then like you said, that fear of that other, and then which had a very John Carpenter's The Thing feel to it, like that, just no creature, just straight up paranoia. You don't know who you're with.
You don't know, right? Yeah.
And I like the string of movies you picked. You had one that was a guy was trying to fix his past. Yeah, the other ones with like the other ones are trying to fix their present. They're trying to fix their lives, and these people are just trying to fix each other.
Yeah.
And then and it's almost like, can you really fix that? And can you move on? That's what it felt like. So I think in the end was really a good metaphor for fixing self, kind of, because that was intense. It didn't go typical. It wasn't typical like this person's going to kill that person. They tried, but it wasn't like it was just enough to like, oh crap, what?
Yeah.
And even like that cliffhanger, you're like, wow, that was pretty.
Because what's gonna happen? By the way, I picked these movies totally on purpose. Whatever you just said about finding them, and this that was totally my, or I just picked a bunch of random movies. Either way, whatever works.
Either way, where I believe this version, and I'll check with the other one in another dimension.
Right, whatever. So any notes on this one? Any last thoughts?
No, I think that I hit my main couple of themes I really liked of it. This one I really liked a lot. So it was really, really cool. This is something I definitely would revisit. So
maybe
yeah.
understand it a little better, you know. Yeah,
I definitely would. That's
yeah.
Yeah, because I want to sit there like want to pick the pieces and like what's going on.
I would
here?
imagine I did not go online for any of these except for like because Mike was in Buffy instead of that I looked up, but I didn't want to go. I didn't want to because I'm sure I guarantee you there's websites where they go okay and here's the rundown of person A becomes person B because you know
Yeah.
and all that. And I'm like I would probably just be confused and I don't really. I want to watch a movie to enjoy the movie and not follow along. But you know you probably can get like I'm sure you can print out a graph of each person and where they are and what scene you could watch and go okay yeah this is version C or version 7 of Lauren or whatever
Your movie's gonna turn into that crazy conspiracy guy has everything over his wall with like point A to Z to B to this connects to this movie, this connects to that one.
Yep, pretty much. Yep. So that was interesting. I really liked the ending on that one.
Yeah.
All right, so then the last movie, the fourth movie, was the Mandela Effect. And so this is basically a couple loses their daughter, she drowns, and then he starts, it's like this horrific, obviously it's horrific for parents to lose their child, and then he's hanging out with his brother-in-law, who is kind of like this funny, shady, dirty kind of guy, and but really like a kind of funny. But he starts noticing things are different, things are weird since this happened. Like it's almost like again, it's like he's slipped into an alternate reality. So, and there's a ton of in this one. There's a ton of Mandela Effect things. So for those who don't know, the Mandela Effect is basically the premise that in one reality, Nelson Mandela died in the 80s in prison. He was never released and he died. And I think in that Glitch in the Matrix documentary, I think they even have like there's this thing of George W. Bush basically saying announcing that he's died. And so there's a lot of people who believe that he died, and I think he died in 2013, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
2013, 2014, in our reality. And then you start looking at all the stuff like, so in this one, she has a Curious George doll. But I think the Curious George doll in the beginning has a tail.
That was really clever.
But then he doesn't have a tail. So that's one of the, there's hundreds of Mandela Effect things. Like you can look them up on the website. So I actually did a lot of research on that after I had watched the Matrix one. It drove my wife nuts because I was like, well, this is, and she was like, stop reading that stuff. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
so
I got texting you when you're doing that too.
Yeah, right. So there's like a lot of. So I wrote a few of them down. So like the Monopoly Man. All right.
I never knew that one.
And so he does not have a monocle, but people remember him having a monocle, which I guess is they say Mr. Peanut had a monocle and they're confusing him. All of these can be, I guess there's answers for all of them. It's what the brain did. It's not about moving through alternate realities. It's like Jif, peanut butter, or Jiffy. People remember one or the other. So the big one they use in this movie is the Bear-Stained Bears. STEIN or STAIN, and it flips. So like in the beginning, he's reading the book and it has the A, and then he goes back and then it's an E, and it's funny in the book because he says to his brother-in-law, he's like, "Don't you remember? It's Bear-Stain," and the brother's like, Bear-Stein, I don't know, it's just a bunch of Jewish bears, But he just kind of blows it off. Like, he's like, this is, and, basically, he's like, this is just in your head. Like, but this guy gets so obsessed with, like, all of these things, And I'm a little obsessed with it, too. Like, we were in the store the other night, and I'm like, look, Febreze. There's one E, not two E's, but I remember it being two. She's like, no, you don't. So there's just a lot of those types of things.
I had that same issue. We're talking about Fear Street and music, and then the music they had in the 90s were, and I kept mixing up the years. It's like, wait, it was this year. I'm like, no, it wasn't, because your memory remembers certain things.
Yeah.
And yeah, I gotta say that. Oh, and also the algorithms, that one gets you too. When you think of something, or you research something, and then one time it popped up on a billboard, the next, like, within that same day, I'm like, the algorithm's getting me. So yeah,
Yeah.
you had those really weird, creepy
Right.
moments of like Mandela effects and algorithms and
Yeah.
like these little breaches in our memory or whatever, these memory lapse, which they said that in this movie too.
Yeah,
memory lapse or false memories.
false memories. Yeah. So that, yeah, the brother-in-law talks about false memories a lot, which is interesting, and that's kind of what it is, because it's this guy lost his daughter, and now he's acting totally crazy, and he's obsessed with trying to figure this out, and he goes to a guy a professor who wrote papers on it and everything. And I thought that was interesting too, because he watches video, and I don't know if this was intentional or not, but he watches video of this guy talking about alternate realities and all this stuff, and the shot is in the exact same spot as back in the 70s, Philip K. Dick, the author, because he believed in all this stuff, and he has and it's actually part of the Glitch in the Matrix documentary, where he talks about a lot of this stuff. And at the time, of course, people said you're nuts, but now a lot of people believe this. A lot of the stuff that he said is not that it came true, but it's believable enough, I guess, that people fall into that. So it was interesting that that here's another character who kind of pushes this guy along, but not like rah cheerleader, like, believe, because he's also kind of a guy who's like, are you sure this is what you like?
Right.
Your daughter died. I feel horrible for you, but like, go and live your life, and go and be, your wife needs you, kind of thing.
This professor was kept type of guy, was like, you don't know if he believed it or not. He treated everything as a case study. Like, this is what people believe, this is what we see, and this is how we're going to break it down. Where the main character was completely obsessed with it, and so that I liked it. I actually enjoyed their chemistry. I thought it was pretty good, because it wasn't forced. It was like just how it needed to be. Where he was like trying to shun him as a crazed fan, and then he's like, okay, this guy's got something going on. Maybe I can help him, or like you said, help him. Or if you can't help him with these wacky theories, maybe I can give him some like solitude and some peace with what happened with him, what happened with his daughter. And that's why I really like that about this movie. It was like, they used all the Mandela Effect tropes we all know, and then some. So, but it's not done in a way where it's like info dumping, like even that one character did in the last movie. It's done in a way where this is what grief is doing to this person's life. He's battling grief. They even said it when he's talking to his wife. Are we even real anymore? She said it. I think she said it. She don't feel real anymore. And that's the grieving process. You're imagining this person not there anymore. It's almost like a glitch, kind of. It almost feels like death feels like a glitch.
Yeah.
And so that really played with his psyche very well. And then even like the little things he sees along the way, that you're kind of like, whoa, what the heck?
Yeah. Is it real? Is it in his mind? Is he really seeing these things? Is he really having these conversations? Are these real, or is this in his head? And he did a ton of research. I mean, in the movie, he's doing all this
that was
research.
Cool. And all the research we heard of too. Yeah.
So at that point, I was like, all right, I know that one. I know that one. I know that. He was like throwing them out there.
That gravitational machine that was built in Sweden. I did a lot of research on that when I heard about it. And it's it's wild, because there's a lot of theories out there that they turned that on and we just woke up in another reality somehow. Like, there's a lot of crazy stuff in there. So that kind of like, I like how they played off that a little bit. That type of fear, the unknown.
It's definitely for me as a writer, I look at this and I go, whoever wrote this script, this was somebody who was totally into this concept, and then used all of that and all that information and all that research and said, okay, now how the hell do I write a movie characters around this? But he did it was done in such a way that it doesn't feel contrived. It's like you just said, it wasn't an info dump on this stuff. It was actually some really cool stuff that was part of this. And I thought, you know what, that's really cool. I like this.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And then I even liked the little soundtrack in there. It had a little 80s soundtrack feel to it. You get some stuff like
Yeah.
that. That's kind of cool. Uh, the special effects when things really get crazy, like that climactic build, and then it gets like really nuts, and you're thinking he's really lost it.
Yeah.
Like that was terrifying stuff. And then like when like I'm going to try to say a little bit without saying too much. Like when people's faces were kind of like distorting and stretching apart in this very digitally way.
Right. It's very, very cosmic horror.
Yeah, I was trying to behave myself there, but yeah, yes, it was. Especially what was going on in the sky there. What the heck? It's like, dude, you broke the system.
Yeah. I liked it. I thought it was again. So, what did you think of the ending?
And the ending was perfect because it really, I don't want to say perfect because nothing's really perfect, but to me, like it works because, oh man, it's like you're pressing a button and you're just trying to fix things. That's all way I can say it, and it's almost it
Right.
played off that like how it just kind of rewound and then went back to the beach.
It was it was a reset. It was.
I didn't want to say reset, but yeah, it was a reset.
I mean, in his mind, it was. These are the things I'm doing to get there, and a lot of, when you need that conflict. I get it. So anytime you change something in this reality, it changes a lot of things in other reality, and it a lot of times obviously it makes it worse. Doesn't always make everything better, kind of thing. But I think it's still just. I think it just worked. Because I liked the ending, and I thought I'm glad they didn't go any further than they go. You know what I mean?
They didn't need to, and it was perfect running time. It was only 80 minutes. Like, it was probably one of the shortest movies of the bunch, and they all weren't that long. They're all right around that 80 to 90 minute, and they all, despite some plot holes, they all did like enough just to kind of like, but this one did it better to some degree. Like one of the better ones that just like you said, just like it just flowed right, and another slow burn that just held your interest.
Yeah, I thought it was good. I liked it. Yeah. You got any notes on this one before we?
No, that was. I mean, I put plays off of knowledge can unleash chaos. That's kind of cool. Ideas are dangerous things, which is one of the sayings in there. Yeah, no, that's pretty. No, that's. I do like the beginning had a little bit of narrative, like the other ones did a little bit too. Like that one and I think it was 41 played off some kind of narrative. I like how those two are kind of equal a little bit to that degree where like Coherence and Parallels had the friendship thing. So that's kind of neat. They all kind of kind of thing. But yeah, that's it.
All right. So if you had to put them in order,
let me get my page so I don't screw that up. I memorized like 3,000-4,000 times. All right. I love going least to best. I like doing that way. So my least favorite was Parallels. Is this something with those plot holes we're talking about and some of the ridiculousness kind of threw me off.
Yeah, I agree.
To such a great ending that I think they could have made that ending better with like strengthening that those fillers. 41, same thing. Like there was some stuff in there, especially the cop scenes. Like you was like, what the heck was going on here? And it was kind of goofy.
It's unnecessary.
It was a fun adventure thing, like I said, but it does take you out of it a little bit, and that's unfortunate. Again, another one with a beautiful ending. I love that ending, that movie. I was like, oh wow. I was like,
once you figure out what's happened, you're like, all right, I like that. Yeah, that's a good ending.
Number 2 is Mandela Effect. I mean, I really don't have much to say that was wrong with this movie. There wasn't really anything wrong with it. I just felt compared to like I would say the Coherence for me is the number one because of just that tension. It hit me as a horror fan. It hit me in the areas as a sci-fi horror thriller. It hit all the areas just right. I think I like the character pieces, like character acting and whatnot. And then I enjoyed the confusion. I thought it was just wacky. It was just like because even though you're confused, they still like put something in there. And you're like, oh, haha, like aha moment, like Leonardo DiCaprio Once in Hollywood. He's like pointing the TV, that type of thing.
Right.
Like you just like have that moment, and because they sneak it in on you, because all the weird chaos. So Coherence is my number one.
I would love to just disagree with any of this, but actually that's my order as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's cool.
And I think 41 and Parallel would have been better movies if they didn't force so much of
Yeah.
the plot at you, and then if they didn't get sidetracked with stuff.
Yeah.
I think that was the bad part, because I love the premise of all four movies.
Yep.
And none of them are bad. I mean, none of them I didn't watch and I went, oh, this is awful.
Yeah, same here.
You know, I was just like, all right, I enjoyed all of them, and it makes you think. And you know, and it drove my wife crazy, which was great, because
I don't think too much.
I kept talking about them the whole time, you know. So I mean, I think that was interesting. But overall, I think it was four good movies. A couple of them I would have never even thought of to watch. But I like how we're doing these themes, so it ends up, you know, in the beginning we just randomly picked 4 Lighthouse movies was the first time we did this, so it's like, okay, we just picked 4 movies. So
it's really fun because you like you said, you don't really pick the attention with all the themes in it. They just come out, you know,
right.
like you pick the similar themes, and then you notice, holy cow, these all kind of connect some weird way. They all have similarities.
Yeah.
I try to do that on purpose a little bit, but even then, it's still like, oh wow, I didn't actually even connect that, you know, like
right.
But these I think these ones, and I think Lighthouse movies, both of those had some of the best like similarities.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Out the four. Oh no, the Alien one's pretty good. Alien was pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. Out of all the movies, I don't even know how many we've done, 3 or 4 episodes of this so far.
Yeah, 16 movies.
Yeah, so out of 16 movies, there was only 1 movie I didn't like. So pretty good.
Oh yeah, and that was the
Vast of Night.
Yeah.
I did not. I just didn't like it. I
liked it, and I agree with you on those critiques.
But you know what? Obviously, this is always fun. This is always fun to do with you, JC. Yeah. And we will. Well, you know what? Back to you now. You got to pick 4 movies.
Okay.
That have something in common, and you know, we're kind of doing horror movies, but then we're also doing other stuff. But it doesn't matter, because whatever you pick, if you pick 4 romantic comedies, you're going to find some cosmic horror in them. So
I'll find some. I am my own Matrix. I am my own glitch. Everything's got tentacles in my mind.
All right, man. So where can people find you out there?
Let's see. People can find me on Twitter, JCW Horror Writer, both Slasher and Instagram. I am JC Walsh 81. Obviously with you on here, Facebook, and I think that was it. I'm not gonna say TikTok yet. We'll get that another time, but I'm still trying to figure that out. Well, I also do another show. I'm a co-host on Bonded by Horror, a live stream show on Twitch, with 2 of my Rhode Island buddies. Another, you know, it's just we talk about one horror movie, or sometimes a original versus remake, do our own little breakdown. Sometimes it gets a little crazy, but like a little different from what we do, but both a good time. So
yeah, well, it's awesome talking to you. You can find me ArmandRosamilia.com. I'm on Twitter, Armand Author. I got a lot of stuff, so just look me up on Amazon. I got, you know, we're both on Amazon. You can find both of our works. Yeah, that probably might be the important one. But anyway, we will next time we will have some more drinks.
Cheers.
And we will do this again. All right, man. It was cool talking to you again.
It was great.
I enjoyed doing these.